A very good morning to everyone. My name is Ha Yun Hui and my matrix number is 292974. Now, I will present about the title is Explain how neoclassical economists extend the economic analysis by discussing on imperfect competitions. There are three economists in this presentation, which is Edward Hastings, Chamberlain, the John Robinsons, and the Irving Fisher. Now, I'll present about the introduction. Neoclassical school proposed the three extensions of economic analysis, which is neoclassical economists emphasize that supply and demand determine the price of good, service, and resource in the market. The second is neoclassical economists are far more interested in the role of money in the economy than earlier marginal economists. The third is neoclassical economists extend the marginal analysis to the market structures as others than pure competitions, pure monopoly, and duopoly. In this presentation, we'll focus on the monetary economies and the imperfect competitions. Monetary economies. Although there are schools of economists that emphasize monetary phenomena, there is no independent school of economists, but the classical and the Marxist school and the marginal earlists believe that the money and price are subordinate to the more basic economic factor. The increasing importance of central bank and government monetary policy as banking, credit, and economic growth has led to increasing the importance of money in the economic theory. Wixell and Fisher made two major contributions to the economies. The first one is their discovery a very important but neglected area. The second is they include the monetary analysis in the economy theory. Although some aspects of the theory introduced by Wixell and Fisher are more consistent with macroeconomies, these economists still belong to the Marshallian neoclassical tradition. This part will focus on the contribution of Wixell and Fisher as the monetary economists in the neoclassical school. In the monetary economies, there is two economic. The first is Wixell and the second is Irving Fisher. Wixell is a Swedish economist of Stockholm's school, and the Irving Fisher is American economist which contribute on developed monetary theory. John Gustav Knuth Wixell. Wixell was born in 1951 in Stockholm, Sweden. Wixell studies the mathematics, language, literature, and philosophy at the University of Uppsala. Not only that, he also took the advanced degree in mathematics and physics there. He was both a scholar and a social reformer, but at the time, his two pursuits were considered quite contradictory. Concern for the social problems and reform led him interested in economics. He subsequently studied at the university in England, France, Germany, and Australia from 1885 to the 1819. For him, his greatest inspiration in study the economist theory came from the von Bauer's book on the capital theory. Wixell is best known for his contribution to the monetary economies. The first one is an analysis of the role interest rate in the achieving an equilibrium price level or in generating the cumulative inflationary or deflationary movement. The second is recognition of the potential contribution of government and the central bank in the retarding or promoting the price stability. The third is an early statement of the saving investment approach to the macro equilibriums. The last contribution established Wixell as the father of the so-called Stockholm School of Economics. Wixell's work became the source of Keynesian economics. Keynes spoke highly of the Wixell and believed that the Wixell's idea inspiring him. The Wixell's objective was to synthesize the monetary economy, business circle theory, and public finance and the price theory into one system. Next, the price level change. The questions: why do the price collectively rise or fall? Wixell turn to interest rate analysis and distinguish between the normal or natural rate of interest rate and the bank rate to find the answer. The first one is the natural rate of interest. Depends on the supply and demand for the real capital that is not yet invested. The supply of capital flows from those who postpone consumption's part of their income and thereby the accumulative wealth. The demand for capital depends on the profit that can be realized from its use or its marginal productivities. And the last is the interaction of supply and the demand determine the natural interest rate. Next, bank rate. Bank create credit due they can extend loan even at a very low interest rate. Since banks do not need all funds, the bank interest rate may be lower or the higher than the normal or natural interest rate. The price level will change in either two cases. The case one is the bank rate is lower than the natural rate. If the bank lend the money at a lower rate than the natural rate, this will lead to the saving decrease and the consumption increase simultaneously. The cost of borrowing will decrease, the investment will increase, the income will increase, and the price will increase. The anticipation of price increase will cause the price to rise even more. The equilibrium is disturbed and cumulative upward price movement means the price will rise without a limit as long as the bank rate is lower than the natural rate. The second case, the bank rate is lower than the natural rate. If the bank rate is lower than the natural rate, the saving will increase, the consumption will decrease. Simultaneously, the cost of borrowing increase, the investment decrease, and the income decrease and the price decrease. With the price of both capital good and consumption good are decreased, the general price level will decrease and the deflation will occur.
Very good day to everyone. So I would like to continue for the implication for public policy. Wixell highlighted the government and central bank roles in stabilizing the economy in his 1898 work, Interest and Price. He was the first to suggest that controlling the interest rate could stabilize the wholesale price. The principal cause of a classical fluctuation, he said, is the fact that the technological and commercial progress has not maintained the same rate of at once as the increase in needs, especially of an expanding population. As demand rise, investment grows, but increasing the output will take time. If the technical improvements are already in operation and no new ones promise a profit in excess of the margin of risk, depression will occur. Wixell did not pursue this real cause of business fluctuation, its great debt. He instead focused his attention on the monetary cost, which we discussed previously. To mitigate the monetary cost of economic fluctuation, Wixell would advocate that banks had set an interest rate that aligns with the natural rate of interest. So the natural rate of interest is the rate set by the supply and demand if money didn't exist. With lending happening through capital goods, however, it is constant. It changes based on economic factors like production efficient, available resources, and labor supply. Market and natural interest rate don't usually match unless banks adjust them. Wixell worried that increased gold production would inflate the currency, lowering the interest rate and raising the prices. To prevent this, he suggests that suspending the free gold coinage and shifting to a global paper standard, which could balance both gold shortage and a surplus. Next, I would like to talk about the forced saving. We still discuss the concept of forced saving in relation to aggregate the saving and investment. Truth not new, this idea had roots in the Bentham forced frugality from the early 18th, where tax and paper money was seen as an indirect income tax on people with fixed income. John Stuart Mill and Leon Warres further developed the idea, describing how the currency depreciation and price rise can limit the consumer spending, that thus increasing the capital accumulation. Wixell illustrates the forced saving through a scenario where a bank loan funds a new enterprise without a corresponding real capital. With a full employment, the extra credit means more land and labor go to capital goods, reducing the consumer goods production. However, consumer demand still rise, driving out the price as entrepreneurs bid for resources. This rise limit the amount of capital goods entrepreneurs can buy and restrict the consumer purchasing, which indirectly enforce the saving needed for increased the investment. As Pixel note, the real saving which is necessary for the period of investment to be increased is in fact enforced and exactly the right amount on consumer as a whole. Next, I would like to continue for the next article, which is the Irving Fisher. He was born on the 27th February 1867 in New York, United States. He's a young mathematician but turns to economist. He published several highly successful mathematical textbooks and also writing several books on how to be healthy and lifelong. And invented a mechanical gadget, one of which was the invisible cut index system. And is an individual who are responsible for introducing the concept of monetary in neoclassical schools beside the fiscal policy. Fisher have introduced three of the theory, which is the first one is theory of interest, and the second one is the quantity theory of money, and the last one is the monetary policy. So let's talk about the theory of interest. So the Fisher have published two books, which is the first one is the rate of interest. It's talk about how interest rate are determined, and the second version is called the theory of interest, who published in the 1930. Is it more revised and expand the version of the theory of interest. This theory explain how interest rate affect the investment and consumption, and they have two factors that interacting to establish the interest rate, which is the impatient rate and the investment opportunity rate. So what is the impatient rate? It is the extent of the community willingness to obtain the present consumption by giving up a future consumption. The amount of future consumption is willing to trade off for present consumption depends on how impatient it is. For example, the less impatient, the more it is willing to save and invest, thereby gaining the future consumption. The more the impatient, the less it is willing to give out the present consumptions in order to obtain the goods in the futures. So when society has much present the consumption relative to the future consumption, the relative value of additional amount of present consumption is small. So the next one is investment opportunity rate IOR. Is an investment opportunity is determined by real factors such as the quantity and quality of resources and the state of the technology. They have a two extreme case. One first one is use all the resources to produce goods for present consumption alone. And the second one is use all the resources to produce capitals. However, as society move from the first extreme to the later one, it experienced the diminishing marginal return as people cut back the present consumption to increase the investment and thereby obtain the greater future consumption. The rate of return on the investment will fall. According to the Fisher, based on the principle of diminishing marginal return, saving and is more saving, the marginal return on investment IOR decrease, meaning each extra unit of a saving yield less future consumption. The impatient rate increase as society value present the consumption more. If happening a less saving, the IOR will increase and the impatient rate will decrease as a society value future consumption more. And for the equilibrium interest rate, the equilibrium interest rate occurs when the rate of return on investment equals to the society impatient rate, balancing the present and future consumption preference. Lending and borrowing, some will lend while others borrows. At the equilibrium rate, desired borrowing equals to desired lending, balancing the saving and investment. The Fisher effect explains that the nominal interest rate adjusts based on the expected inflation. For example, if the real interest rate is 3% and inflation is expected to be 5%, then the nominal interest rate will be around 8%. Initially, an increase in money supply may lower the rates, but rising price prompts lenders to raise the nominal rate to account for inflation. Thus, high nominal rate often reflect high expected inflation, not a necessary real factors like time preference or real return on the investment. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Salam sejahtera, my name is Putri Rizkina binti Usman, matrix number 293891. The second theory of fishes is the quantity theory of money. There are 5 determinants of the purchasing power of money or its inverse, which is the price level. The first determinant is volume of currency in circulation. The second one is its velocity of circulation. The third one is the volume of bank deposit subject to check. The next one is its velocity, and the last one is the volume of trade. Next, we can see the Fisher's equation of exchange, which mv plus m prime v prime equal to p, which is the average level of prices, and t, the quantity of goods and services sold. According to Fisher, prices vary directly with the quantity of money, which is m, and the velocity of circulation, which is the v. So if the price increases, m and v will also increase. The second one is prices vary inversely with the volume of trade, which is the t. So if the prices increase, t will decrease. The last one is the volume of demand deposits, m prime, hold a fixed relation to the quantity of currency in circulation, which is the m. So it will define a multiple of currency. So I will explain in detail about the relationship between the quantity of currency m and the price level p. So Fisher assumed that the velocity of circulation and the volume of trade are constant, which means m and t are constant. The tendency towards stability in T also depend on full employment equilibrium. It is because with considerable unemployment, an increase in M might very well increase T instead of P, which is the price level. In the long run, the volume of trade, T, also grows with the change in population and efficiency of production and other factors. While in the short run, with a fully employed economy, the quantity of currency in circulation, which is the M prime, normally determines the price level, which is the P. The question is what is the transmission mechanism which increases or decreases in M, cause changes in P. The explanation goes by individuals aim to maintain a specific cash balance relative to their expenditure, but an increase in cash supply will disrupt this balance and leading to a higher expenditure. Fisher explained that there is a direct connection or direct link between increased currency and prices, which means an increase in currency will increase the prices, while Wixell emphasized that there is no direct connection, but it is an indirect link between the currency and prices, which money creation will affect bank interest rate and influencing saving and investment that will ultimately impacting the price level. So as we can see here, Fisher theory said that there is a direct link between currency and price level, while Wixell emphasized there is indirect link. The last theory of Fisher is monetary policy. As we know, the quantity theory of money aims to stabilize the price level and also the economy. Fisher viewed irredeemable paper money unfavorably before the Great Depression. So he proposed to abandon gold coins for gold certificates paper money redeemable in bullion. Fisher also believed that the price fluctuation will cause a business fluctuation. So stabilizing prices by controlling the money supply will eliminate the business cycle. After the 1929 crash, Fisher attributed deflation and depression to rising debt and fluctuation in demand deposit. His solution was to mandate 100% of reserve for demand deposit, separating money creation from banking. There are 3 key points of his proposal. The first one is banks should buy a liquid asset equal to 100% of checking deposits. The second one is bank could only lend their own funds or money from saving accounts only. And the last one is bank must charge service fee to offset their lost earnings. Fisher's monetary policy aims to eliminate severe monetary inflation and deflation. In this policy, Fishers also explained that the currency commission would stabilize the dollar's purchasing power by buying securities when the index is below par and selling the securities when the index is above par. Lastly, Fishers also said and believed that business cycles are not inherent to the economy. Regarding our discussion in this presentation about the three Fishers theories, we learn and also can conclude that Fisher was excelled in mathematical economics, statistics, and also index numbers. He also pioneered in econometric, which he can integrating statistical method into economic analysis. And lastly, Fisher was elected president of the American Economic Association, American Statistical Association, and also Econometric Society in recognition of all his contributions.
Theories of imperfect competition belong to marginalists of neoclassical school of thought. Carnot developed models of monopoly and duopoly in 1838. Edgeworth and Wixell analyzed the cases where demand curves were not perfectly elastic. Interest in imperfect competition arose due to gaps in the theories of pure competition and monopoly. The theory of pure competition became less applicable to the modern condition, especially outside the agriculture. Economists argue that the pure competition was more relevant to agriculture than to industrial production and trade. Theories of imperfect competition reflect to the characteristic of the neoclassical school, focus on the marginalism and microeconomics, abstract, deductive, and subjective methodology, assume a rational statistic and equilibrium-seeking work. These theories highlight how monopolies can raise prices above the competitive level to gain a long-term economic profit. Monopolistic competition is when the prices are higher and output is lower compared to the pure competition, even without the monopoly profits. Factors of production receive the return below the value of their marginal contribution. Impacts of this theory is the challenges that believe that private enterprise always ensure the optimal resources allocation. Question whether the private system adequately reward all factors of the production. One of the focus of the assignment is the contribution of Chamberlain and Robinson, who analyzed the scenario between the pure competition and monopoly. This theory of imperfect competition has been done by Edward Hastings Chamberlain and John Robinson. Chamberlain was born in La Corner, Washington. He received his undergraduate degree from the University of Iowa. He published The Theory of the Monopolistic Competition in 1933. This important book fused to the previously separate theories of monopoly and competition, and it explains a range of market situations that are neither purely competitive nor totally monopolistic. Chamberlain held that most market prices are actually determined by the both monopolistic and competitive element. The theory of monopolistic competition: demand and marginal revenue under monopolistic competition. Each firm demand curve slopes downward. The marginal revenue curve lies below the demand or average the revenue curve. Next, under the pure competition, firms can sell all their produce at the market price. Marginal revenue equals to price, and both are represented by a horizontal line. For example, a farmer selling wheat at 5 per bushel adds 5 to total revenue for each additional bushel sold. Under the imperfect competition, marginal revenue is less than price for additional units sold. For example, selling salt at varying price. One pair at 20, which is marginal revenue equal to 20. Two pairs at 18, which is marginal revenue less than 18, and 3 pairs at 16, which is marginal revenue also less than 16. Marginal revenue example, first pair of salt is marginal revenue equal to 20, second pair of salt, marginal revenue equal to 16. For the calculation, is total revenue increase from 20 to 36, which is increase of 16. For calculation 2, second pair sells for 18, but first price drop by 2 and get the net of 16. Relationship between the marginal cost and average cost. When the marginal cost is less than average cost will decrease. When the marginal cost is more than average cost will increase. Marginal cost curve intersect the average cost curve at its lowest point. Chamberlain's view on monopoly: a firm price will exceed average cost in both the short run and long run only if it enjoys the significant monopoly power. Based on the curve, given that the demand curve D and marginal revenue curve MR, the monopolistic competitor produce the quantity of B at which MR equal to MC and at which it earns an economic profit of LM and S. This economic profit attracts new entrants to the industry, resulting in a downward shift of the firm's demand and marginal revenue curve to D and MR. In long-run equilibrium, the firm maximizes profit by producing quantity of A, earns only a normal profit P equal to AC, produce less than the competitive output A rather than C, and charge a price that exceeds marginal cost and lowers average cost. The result is excess the capacity than allocative inefficiency. The key factors of Chamberlain's model: monopolistic competitive firms offer the differentiated products. Price exceeds marginal cost. Firm operated at output levels where the average costs are higher than the minimum. Implication for society: allocative inefficiency. Scarce resources are not used for their highest value purpose. Society values additional units of these goods more than the alternative product. Producing additional units would lower the average cost of the product. Qualification of the monopolistic competition. Many economists have related that the pure competition results in a larger output, more efficient production, and lower selling price than does that occur under the monopolistic competition. Pure competition and its assumption. First, the theoretical model. In a world of the pure competition, firms sell the identical products. There are many buyers and sellers, and there are no barriers to entry or exit. According to the economics like Edward Chamberlain, in such a market structure, firms will operate at the lowest possible cost, leading to the most efficient production, the greatest output, and the lowest price. Next is the real-world complication. However, this model relies on some unrealistic assumptions. For example, in the real-world market, firms do not always have identical cost structure. Difference in technology, managerial efficiency, and access to the resources mean that firms may not operate at the lowest possible cost under the pure competition. This makes the assumption that pure competition automatically result in the lowest price and the greatest output less certain. Second, the case of the monopolistic competition. Variety and differentiation. In the monopolistic competition, firms produce slightly different products. Think of the clothing brand, restaurant, or technology gadget. These products are not perfect substitutes, allowing the firms to have some control over pricing. This structure also still maintains magnified competing, which prevents the market from being dominated by a single seller. As in the pure monopoly, positive benefit. A key benefit of the monopolistic competition is the variety it offers. Consumers are able to choose from a range of the different products that better suit their tastes and preferences. while price may be higher than in pure competition due to the brand difference and limited economics of scale. Variety is often cited by economists as an advantage over the uniformity of pure competition, which can make the market less dynamic and innovative. Lastly is the volume of output and prices. Contrary to pure competition, it is important to note that pure competition does not necessarily guarantee the highest output and lowest price in all cases. In reality, monopolistic competition can foster the innovation and improvement in the product quality, which can lead to the higher consumer satisfaction and increase the demand for certain products. This can result in a greater volume of output for specific product, even if the price is higher than in a purely competitive market.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Ishak bin Ahmad Isa. My metric number 288411. I will present about Joanne Robinson. Joanne Robinson is a British economist. She was a long-time professor of economics at Cambridge University. She was a student of Alfred Marshall. She has written a book. The title is The Economics of Imperfect Competition. Was published a few months after Chamberlain's and covers substantially the same ground. Robinson expanded her activities and made important contributions in Keynesian and post-Keynesian economics, economic development, and international trade. Robinson also offered a significant critique of Marxist economics, though her position was that of a friendly detractor, and was known in her later years as a critic of conventional economics, and her overall works are difficult to fit within any school of thought. Next is the monopsony. Monopsony is a situation in which there is either a single buyer in a market or a group of buyers acting as one. Product market monopsony. When there are many buyers of a commodity, their aggregate demand curve slopes downward and to right. The more units of a good a person acquires, the lower its marginal utility. If there is only single buyer, or if all the buyers form an agreement to act together, we can assume that the market demand curve remains unaltered. We can also assume that the supply curve remains unchanged because it indicates how much all sellers together will offer at each price. The supply price is based on the cost of producing each quantity, and this cost does not change in the presence of a monopsony. Robinson has stated two generalization. First, under pure competitions, the buyer will purchase successive units of goods at any one time up to where the price is equal to marginal utility. Second, under monopsony, the buyer will regulate purchases in such a way that the marginal cost to him is equal to marginal utility. These important propositions are illustrated in the table. Pure competition among buyers is: suppose the market price of some hypothetical product X is $4. No single buyer can influence the price. We assume that the marginal utility data in column 5 is for a particular consumer who buys only this good. At any one time, ownership of the first unit of the product provides the consumer $7 marginal utility. A second unit provides $6 of marginal utility to him. The third is $5, the fourth unit is $4, and so forth. At the price of $4, the consumer will buy 4 units of the product. That is, he will buy units of the product up to the point where the price is equal to marginal utility. Now suppose the same consumer is the only buyer of product X in this market. Acquiring the first through the fourth units of the product still provide a marginal utility for him of $7, $6, $5, and $4. Assuming that can increase the production of this product only under condition of increasing cost. We see from column 1 and column 2 in table that he can buy 1 unit of X for $1, but 2 units will cost him $2 each, for a total cost $4. As shown in column 4, the marginal cost to him of the second unit is $3 rather than simply $2. The actual price will choose of the second unit. This $3 marginal cost, however, is less than the marginal utility of the second unit, which is $6, and therefore the person will choose to buy it. Thus, we observe from the table that this consumer will decide to buy 3 units of the product because at this amount, his marginal cost is just equal to his marginal utility, which is $5. The conclusion is, under normal conditions of an upward sloping product supply curve, the monopsonist will purchase fewer units of product, which is 3, than would competitive buyers, which is 4 units, and will pay a lower than competitive price. The monopsonist can control the product price by adjusting the quantity of purchases, much like a monopolistic seller can control the same price by adjusting the output label. Lastly, Robinson pointed out that in the presence of a perfectly elastic supply curve, that is, where marginal cost and average cost of production are equal, the supply price will be constant and the quantity purchased under monopsony will be the same as under pure competition. If an industry is working under a diminishing supply price, the marginal cost to the monopsonist will be less than the price of the commodity. He or she will buy more product than would pure competitors.
Robinson also analyzed monopsony in market for resources using the labor market as an illustration. The contemporary graphical representation of labor market monopsony, figure 17.2, derived directly from Robinson's own presentation. To keep the explanation manageable, we will initially disregard the curve labeled V and P in the figure. The monopsonistic employer faces a marginal wage cost curve MWC that lies above the market supply curve S. To maximize its profit, it restricts its hiring A rather than B in order to pay a lower than competitive wage R rather than S. According to Robinson, monopsonistic exploitation is N-R, the difference between marginal revenue product MRP and monopsony wage. When there is monopoly or monopolistic competition in a product market, the value of the marginal product VMP exceeds MRP and monopoly exploitation is TN. Following Marshall's approach, Robinson declared that an employer's short-run labor demand curve is its marginal revenue product curve (MRP). This is true in both monopsonistic and competitive labor market. Marginal revenue product is the increase in total revenue to the employer when it hires an additional worker. It is the extra revenue that the firm gets when it sells the greater output that the aided worker helped produce. When there is pure competition in the sale of the product, marginal revenue product decline as more workers are hired solely because of the law of diminishing returns. Each aided worker contributes less to extra output and therefore less to marginal revenue than did the previously added worker. The labor curve facing a monopsony slope outward and to the right. Because the monopsony is the only employer of a particular type of labor, it faces the market labor supply curve. This curve also indicates the average wage cost (AWC) because it shows the wage rate that must be paid per worker to attract a particular number of workers. Under monopsony, the marginal wage cost, the extra cost associated with employing one more worker exceeds the average wage cost or wage rate. The monopsonist must increase the wage rate to attract additional workers away from the alternative employment, household activity, or leisure, and it must pay this higher wage rate to all of the workers. The extra cost of employing an additional worker is therefore more than the wage rate paid to that worker. It also includes the extra wage paid to workers who could have been attracted at a lower wage rate. How many workers will the monopsonist represented in figure 17.2 employ? The answer, C. Robinson, is A, because this is the number at which the marginal revenue product of the last worker employed just equals the marginal wage cost point N. If MRP were greater than MWC, it would be profitable for the firm to hire more workers. If MRP were less than MWC, the employer could add to his profit by reducing employment. The monopsony shown in figure 17.2 will pay a wage rate of L. As seen by the supply curve, it can attract its profit maximizing number of employees A at this wage rate. Conclusion. First, a labor market monopolist will employ fewer workers than would be hired by employers competing with one another for workers A rather than B. The monopolist reduce employment to avoid driving up the wage it must pay to all workers. Second, under monopoly, the worker is exploited. Robinson cited one definition of exploitation of labor as a factor of production, being employed at a wage that is less than one's marginal revenue product, R rather than N. If the market for labor is perfect, so that each employer can hire all the labor needed at the market wage, the marginal wage cost of labor to the individual employer is equal to the wage rate. The employer will be impelled by self-interest to hire workers up to the point where the marginal revenue product is equal to the workers' wage rate. Exploitation of labor under this definition normally does not occur in a competitive labor market. Exploitation under monopolistic competition. Remedies for exploitation. Criticism. First, sale of an additional unit of output does not add the full amount of the product's price to marginal revenue. Marginal revenue that firm take in when it hire an additional worker and sell the resulting greater output will be less than the extra output. Third, firm will sell all unit at the lower price, even it could have sold at a higher price had it not hired the extra worker. Remedies for exploitation. Trade unions should impose a minimum wage. Supply of labor become perfectly elastic at the imposed wage rate, and the marginal wage cost of labor identical with the average wage cost. The next supply curve would be a horizontal line emanating from the vertical axis. The wage would equal the marginal revenue product, and exploitation from monopoly would disappear. Criticism. The Pigou-Robinson definition of exploitation applies only to pure competition in the sale of the product. It is impossible under other market conditions for all factors to get the value of their marginal product. According to Pigou-Robinson, all the factors are exploited. An employer could avoid the charge of exploitation only by going into bankruptcy. Conclusion. Two differences between marginalist and neoclassical economies is economic analysis. First, several of the neoclassical economies took a far greater interest in the role of money in the economy than did the earlier marginalists Wicksell and Fisher. Second, neoclassical economies extended marginal analysis to market structure other than the pure competition, pure monopoly and duopoly, Chamberlain and Robinson. Wicksell contribution to monetary economics. First, an analysis of the role of interest rate in achieving an equilibrium price level or in generating cumulative inflationary or deflationary movement. Second, recognizing the potential contribution of the government and central bank in retarding or promoting price stability. Third, an early statement of the saving investment approach to macroeconomic equilibrium. This established Wicksell as the so-called father of the Stockholm School of Economics. Fisher contribution to monetary economics. First, theory of interest. Second, the quantity theory of money. Third, monetary policy. Chamberlain and Robinson contribution to the theories of imperfect competition. First, Chamberlain, theory of monopolistic competition. Second, Robinson, theory of monopsony.